We're talking about a powerful synthetic drug, a multi-billion-dollar criminal empire, and two countries basically on a collision course. So let's get into this showdown between the United States and Mexico over the deadly flow of fentanyl, because this is a crisis that's just getting worse on both sides of the border.
To really get why this is such a huge deal, you just need this one, frankly staggering fact. Fentanyl overdose is now the #1 cause of death for Americans between the ages of 18 and 49. And this whole epidemic? It's being fueled almost entirely by a supply chain that runs straight through Mexico.
And this quote from former President Trump really captures the political temperature right now. The language is so important here. It frames the whole thing not as a health problem, but as a war. And that puts this immense pressure on Mexico to, in his words, straighten it out really fast.
So what is this stuff at the heart of the storm? Let's break down exactly what fentanyl is and why it's become such an explosive issue in this whole conflict.
The main thing you have to understand here is its sheer power. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, which just means it's cooked up in a lab, not grown from a plant. But its potency is off the charts. A lethal dose can be as tiny as just a few grains of salt. It's unbelievable.
So why on earth has fentanyl become what some people call a miracle product for the cartels? Well, it's all about the money. See, unlike heroin, you don't need huge fields of poppies. You just need a lab and the right chemicals, which often come from China. What does that mean? Lower costs, easier logistics, and absolutely insane profit margins. It's the perfect business model for the modern drug trade. So let's go to the border, because that brutally effective business model for the cartels, well, for law enforcement, it's a logistical nightmare. This is the front line of the smuggling war.
And I'm not exaggerating here. You've got thousands upon thousands of cars and trucks crossing legally every single day. There's just no way to search everything. It's physically impossible. And you better believe the cartels know that, and they use it to their advantage every single day. And just look at how sophisticated they are. I mean, we're not talking about simple stuff here. They're hiding millions of pills inside a totally normal-looking car. They're digging these complex tunnels that actually hook into public drainage systems. They're flying drones over the wall. They are exploiting every single tiny gap along that massive 3,000-kilometer border. Yeah, and this quote from a reporter who was right there on the ground, it just nails it, right? The creativity, the cleverness, the pure effort, it all points to one thing: the financial incentive behind this is almost unimaginable.
But the price for that business isn't just being paid in American lives. We have to talk about Tijuana, a city that's been turned into a battlefield by the very same cartels getting rich off the fentanyl trade.
So whatever image you have in your head of Tijuana as a tourist spot, just forget it. The reality today is a non-stop, brutal turf war. Cartels are literally fighting to the death for control of these smuggling routes, and the city and its people are caught right in the middle. And the scale of the violence across Mexico, it's just breathtaking. Over the past 20 years, cartel violence has killed more than 450,000 people. I mean, just try to wrap your head around that number for a second. And then you hear something like this from a local journalist, and that massive number becomes terrifyingly real. This isn't some abstract war happening far away. This is the daily reality she's describing, a kind of violence that's designed to terrorize everybody. And here's the other crucial piece of this. The crisis is now spilling back over the border into Mexico. Cartels are testing their own product, they're paying local dealers with drugs, and now border towns like Tijuana are facing their own devastating opioid crisis, and they have almost no way to handle it.
So, with this thing blowing up on both sides, let's zoom out and look at the high-stakes political game, this tightrope walk that's playing out between the leaders of both countries.
So here's how it's basically played out. It's cause and effect. First, former President Trump puts on maximum pressure. He's threatening huge tariffs, even talking about military action. Then, Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, responds with a massive crackdown. She sends 10,000 troops to the border. And her proof that it's working? She says seizures are down.
But is that the whole story? Well, not so fast, say experts like Guadalupe Correa Cabrera. She challenges that official story. Her point is that a drop in seizures doesn't automatically mean less fentanyl is getting through. It could just mean the cartels have found newer, better routes that the authorities don't even know exist yet.
So the real fear here, the big worry, is that this whole intense focus on fentanyl is just a political show for the United States, a show that's costing Mexico a fortune, while the deeper, real problems like corruption, extortion, and kidnappings that terrorize its own people are just allowed to get worse. So as we start to put this all together, it becomes really clear. This isn't just one crisis. It's two, and they're tangled up in feeding each other across that shared border.
What we're really looking at are two very different faces of the same crisis. On the U.S. side, it's a public health emergency. The focus is on overdose deaths, which leads to this demand for Mexico to just cut off the supply. But then you look at Mexico, and it's a full-blown national security crisis. We're talking brutal cartel wars and deep-seated corruption, a crisis that's made even harder to solve because of all that pressure from the U.S.
Which really leaves us with the big question at the heart of all this. With the death toll climbing in both countries, is this massive military crackdown we're seeing actually the start of a real solution? Or is it just political theater, a show that does almost nothing to fix the real reasons this devastating crisis is happening in the first place?